I came to AACR to report on our latest findings in area of inflammation and cancer. Particularly, our lab is interested to find molecular mechanisms of how chronic unresolved inflammation promotes tumor growth and progression, with the hope in the future that other scientists will be able to bring it to clinical and translational implications. There are many types of inflammation associated with tumor development, and we particularly are interested in studying one of them, which is called tumor-elicited inflammation, and which has been characterized only recently. And that is a type of inflammation which normally does not exist at the time when tumor is formed, but as tumor grows, somehow magically it gets the abilities to recruit immune cells and activate inflammatory mediators, seemingly towards the benefit of the tumor. And we try to study how particular cytokines, small molecule mediators released by cancer cells or by immune cells, can act to promote inflammation and to promote tumor growth. Inflammation is needed to fight infection, but also it is needed for correct wound healing and resolution of infection, because very often infection happens via our epithelial barriers, and if those epithelial barriers are breached, then bacteria or viruses can get in and cause the disease. So when immune system is poised to take care about those bacterial viruses, it also tries to restore those functional epithelial barriers or borders to do correct wound healing. In case of cancer, because of the oncogenes, because of the mutations of tumor suppressors, and in some cancers associated with a rich bacterial component like colon cancer, gastrointestinal cancer, skin cancers, in this case, epithelial barrier and tissue homeostasis are severely disrupted, and immune system tries to restore this homeostasis by forcing epithelial or cancer cells to proliferate, because in normal tissue probably it would just result in closing down the epithelium and restoration of tissue homeostasis. But in cancer it only results in increased tumor growth, and because of that is like a vicious cycle, like a feed-forward loop. So more cancer growth means more inflammation. For preventive measures, people noticed for a long time that, for example, chronic usage of aspirin magically reduces cancer-associated death. And it was initially invented to help people with high risk of heart disease, but then it turned out that it protects against cancer much better than it protects against heart disease. So we already know that non-specifically targeting inflammation helps. Also, we know that lifestyle and dietary changes also help to reduce chronic inflammation, because many types of inflammation are associated with a chronic environmental exposure, let's say to toxins, to fine particles, asbestos, food poisoning, as well as tobacco smoke, or obesity-associated inflammation, which, by the way, are on the rise in westernized world. So all those sort of environmental stimuli which promote chronic inflammation could be a target for interventions to basically prevent cancer, because you can change your lifestyle or diet or any other factors influencing chronic inflammation in general. And of course also we are talking about creation of new, more targeted therapies. Those therapies to block inflammation in autoimmune diseases are already available. We know that we can block inflammatory bowel disease with blocking cytokine called TNF or interleukin-1. We can block rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis, and theoretically, and it's being tested now in animal models and limitedly in clinical trials, the same inhibitors for cytokines, which we study, can be potentially used in cancer as well, and maybe they can be brought to clinics much faster, because their safety profile is already known from the studies in autoimmune diseases and models. In general, there will be such concern because, for example, even aspirin, which is seemingly harmless, often causes bleeding in gastrointestinal tissue, and any biological therapy or anything targeted to inflammation potentially will have some side effects, but we strongly believe that its side effects probably will not be comparable with the risk of dying from cancer or from any other severe, let's say, autoimmune disease, which is life-threatening. Well, targeting cytokines and inflammation unlikely will work as a monotherapy in advanced cancers. But as you mentioned, indeed, for example, one of the problems checkpoint inhibitors face is that they are quite effective in some cases, but in other cases, tumor microenvironment does things like immunosuppression, and particularly this immunosuppression is achieved by secretion of different cytokines which can participate in a chronic inflammation. So theoretically, and that remains to be tested, anti-cytokine blockade can be combined with checkpoint inhibitor blockade, or alternatively can be combined with different chemotherapy or radiotherapeutic approaches. And very likely that combination will be more effective than just using conventional chemotherapy or conventional radiotherapy. We think that the entire field of tumor microenvironment, and particularly chronic inflammation playing a role in tumor development progression, is a very exciting one. Major progress in that field has been done probably in the last 10 years, and there are many more avenues to study, and we are very excited that a lot of young researchers now join this subject of biological and biomedical science. And we think really that field holds a lot of promise for the future development either of preventive or therapeutic strategies for cancer, but also for autoimmune diseases.